For me, I was interested in architecture because I feel like buildings are like a reflection of society, and like when they're built, it's like a reflection of when society, like where society's at, and like politics and what's like happening. So for me, it's like a glimpse of history, especially like old sort of buildings. And then also I love like the challenge of architecture, like I don't know, just like knowing that like something you design is like going to be built. It's pretty cool. Okay, well, firstly we have like Flinders Street, which is pretty iconic, like for an older style of architecture, and then we have like Melbourne, Victoria State Library, which is it was like inspired by like Roman and Greek style architecture. You can see that like from like the columns. We've got the like Corinthian columns, which is like originated in Corinthia, which is like Greece. So that's quite interesting, I think. And then on the other end of the scale, we have places like this building here, which is really interesting because it references like Melbourne culture and Melbourne history in a newer style of architecture. And then I think the most interesting style of architecture is when they combine both like old and new. But I personally love older architecture, so like Victorian era and that sort of thing, because like I said, it is like a glimpse of our history and like who we were, and then like how we've developed and that sort of thing. So I'd say older, but I love also when the old is mixed with like a new purpose and is like revamped. Definitely attracts. Since Australia is such like a new sort of country compared to some other like Italy and stuff, I think it's really nice that we have like older buildings and like references our history, and then like it gives us a bit of more history and culture. Like I think Melbourne's identity is that it's so diverse, so like it has so many cultures, and that is its identity. And I think their architecture is a good reflection of that. It has changed a lot, especially in the suburbs. Like we've been researching Fitzroy, that it's just like just an outer suburb of the city, and it especially changes when there was a big influx of new Australians. So like it started off, if you look at like Victoria Parade, it's got really wide roads, and it was like meant to be built for like big high rises like New York and stuff, but Melbourne didn't have the money for that. So they like started building like smaller buildings and like terrace style buildings, especially to accommodate the newer Australians. And like it sort of like gave it its like own sort of like appearance, like with the wide streets, but then like the small houses is quite unique. And like just like over the time, like as Melbourne was like more poor, they like couldn't afford to have like the grandeur of like like other like bigger cities around the world, and then like now they're like starting to come develop. So I think Australia's going to become, or like especially Victoria, and Melbourne is going to become more highly densely populated, and like you'll see higher rises coming up, especially as like the economy rises, and as opposed to like before when we were quite like a new country and like didn't have very many like a big population or a big economy. I'm not sure. I think it's quite like each person has their own own favourite sort of thing. But like I was saying before, like it's because it's such a diverse culture and like so many people from around the world, especially like a lot of students that come as exchange, they all have like their different like styles they like sort of thing. So I'm like, I don't know, a range. I think we're starting to. I don't think it like is completely utilised most areas. Like for example, Flinders Street station is like they're using the ground quite well, but if you notice that there's on Flinders Street there's actually like a second level that isn't being used, and like a couple of years ago they had a competition to like see what they could do with the space. So I think the Melbourne City Council is like trying to promote us to like do more with like the older architecture and like restore it, but I think it's still developing. Yeah, so like just what I was talking about before, yeah, like there is so much inspiration from other cities and cultures, and because Australia's like identity is that we are so multicultural, it's definitely reflected in our architecture and our like diverse range of architecture. Yeah. No, I definitely think it's a range, but I think we do have a strong influence in like the European style, like grandeur, especially in our old buildings, and then like Roman style architecture, which is like all the columns and that sort of thing. I think we will start getting more high rises, especially in our suburbs, and more apartments as more people want to come to Australia. And yeah, I think the city council's like town plan is to stop expanding the suburbs and have it more high density instead of like expanding out.